17. No, the shim. God, and working. So many same got many time over the and so no, but I can't new people. Yeah. So that's why I hope we build fiberboard more. Why that's good. What's it name? What's it name? What's it? Oh, Billy, Kelly, Junior, Joe, the president, I made a new job of him. So I hope that my kid starts to play the need to be like, wow, give it to them. Stupid, but no habit, stupid. So I was stupid, doctor, class. Not God, I like him, but he was so now. Like I can argue. So I hope in the future the farmer work even more and more involved and more awareness for further that of course. But it's how I go and mean I no come here, people here. I was shocked. I was never that. I'm sorry, I went to help. I'm not going to college. But what I did here, can't be Portland. And also his midst. For 1 minute, it used to bounce to you to but yes. Okay.
Hey, Jared.
Well, that's good idea. I like that.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have the passcode on there. Debbie Martin's saying she can't get in. It's asking for a passcode. How do I go back and find out what that is?
If you click the shield in the top left
Hold on.
of your Zoom window.
Okay, top left.
Yep, top left. There's a green shield with a check mark.
I see security shield.
Yep, click that.
Okay. It says remove participants, suspend.
Nope. Okay, don't click that. Whenever you move your mouse, a little green shield should pop up to the left of where it says recording in the top left.
Oh, That left.
Yeah, your other left.
So it's the participant ID.
No, the participant ID is the
Oh, passcode. I see it.
yeah, passcode.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
A little bit more. Same as Kate. Yes. Well, I'm signing. Dawn will be doing the voicing. We're gonna try to stay. So it'll be me.
We're not switching. So I'm going to voice the whole time and Sarah's going to sign the whole time.
Okay, so who needs to be pinned?
Sarah.
Or spotlighted, I guess.
Yeah, spotlight. And Toya, you sent me a message. Did I forward the link for the KSDAB? What do you mean?
Just making sure you all had that link.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm like, oh, was I supposed to do something? Okay.
No, you're good.
We have 1 minute.
Yeah, true. And
And I was just gonna let you all know, Dawn's voicing for all of you.
Okay.
Sarah's-
Whenever you all are ready, we've got about 10 seconds until 3 o'clock. So I'm just waiting on you all to let me know when to go.
no.
Sarah, if it gets stuck, just yell Mayday.
Mayday, Mayday.
Do
Okay.
we need a safe word?
We'll just say Mayday.
It's Toya. Toya's our safe word. Toya, come here.
He wants to know. Oh,
He's talking to somebody in the room with him.
He only sees 2 board members. He wants to know if the other board members are there yet.
Okay, I'll give the list of who's here.
Can't see Joshua or Nancy. That's who I've not seen yet.
Josh and Nancy are here.
Okay.
Okay, can they, how do you show them? I don't see their,
They can take their video and turn their video on.
Okay.
oh.
I am here.
Josh is here.
Hi, Josh. And what about Bridget?
Bridget is not here, nor is Dodie.
Sarah, Dodie is with your finger on your chin, not your, no, your finger.
Oh, Dodie.
Yeah, yep.
Sorry. Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Hewlett, what a treat.
Okay, what I'll say is I'm hosting today the Zoom meeting. So if you're called on to speak or have a question and Scott calls on you, give me a second to pin you so that we can see you on the screen. So wait until you see yourself beside Sarah, and then I will pin you, and then we'll start talking from there, okay?
Got it. Okay. And is Susan Dorn here? Susan Dorn, is she here? Okay, just want to make sure.
Bridget is here.
Oh.
Okay. Scott did say we were ready.
Yeah, we just got to spotlight Scott and Sarah.
We are at about 3 minutes over. We do have
Or-
people waiting, so just whenever you guys are ready.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Toya, I don't know if you want to spot. Okay, never mind. Sorry.
Okay, then we are going to go live. And we are live.
Hi, I'd like to ask Debbie Martin to do the roll call, please. Scott Hahn, are you here?
Here.
Dodie Carr, are you here? Susan Dorn, are you here? Jeff Kasinger? Bridget Mann? Nancy Perry? Joshua Matthews?
I am here.
Principal Roby? And that's your roll call. Thank you, Debbie. We meet a quorum so that we can meet today. And thank you for being here. Everyone should have a copy of the agenda and a copy of the board minutes. Are there any questions about the agenda? Can we go ahead and proceed with it as is? Okay. Welcome, everyone. Hopefully you received a copy of our November minutes and you've had a chance to read over them. Are there any comments or recommendations for change or any errors that need to be adjusted? Do I hear any motions to accept the minutes as is?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Thank you. And Jeff Kasinger, say I second it. Thank you, Joshua Matthews, for your motion that has as accepting the minutes as is, and seconded by Jeff Kasinger. All in favor, raise your hand. Great. Now I'm going to allow Miss Toya Roby, our principal, to go ahead and begin her principal updates as per the agenda.
Okay, so
Could I get everyone to hold on just 1 second? Our audio is not coming through the stream real quick. Okay, could I get someone to say something?
Test 1, 2, 3.
Try one more time.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
sit-
For some reason, our audio is not coming through. So we will not have audio on the YouTube feed.
okay. Jared, are you seeing my screen? Says
Yes.
I'm sharing my screen. So do you see the presentation, KSD Reopening Plan?
Yes. Yes, we have full video. We just don't have audio on the YouTube stream.
Okay. What I want to do is start with our KSD Reopening Plan. I shared out this handout for you all to have as a follow-up if you wanted to print prior to. We sent out January 27th. We sent out a survey that we had sent previously to our families. We had sent a survey back in June asking how things went in the spring so that we could use that to refine our practices. We sent out again in August or July, trying to figure out how many students would be coming back virtually. Of course, we were unable to return, so we used the same approach, sent that to our families January 27th. You will see from the graph that we have 71% who will be returning to in-person classes at KSD, with 28% remaining virtual. Our reopening plan, actually there's a picture at the top of what that looks like on our website. What I've done in these slides is to pull out our main, I guess, topics that we address in our plan. So I'm not going to go over each and every one of those, but I'll give you a second to look those over. On that, where it says KSD Reopening Plan, that's actually a hyperlink, which you all won't have that in the PDFs, but you can, we have a dedicated page on our website, on the KSD website for COVID, anything related to COVID-19. All that has been filed there. We have a letter that will be going out to parents within the next week, week and a half, talking about expectations for when the kids return. So our focus on daily procedures, Back in October, we had staff on campus and we practiced. We used our teachers as the students to practice some of our processes, to put them into action. We'll be doing that again with our teachers when they come onto campus, just to make sure that things are moving smoothly before the students get here. We want to practice, identify any gaps or misunderstandings that we might have in our practice. Social distancing. You see that we've identified processes, campus visitors. We've not allowed visitors on campus. We're keeping our parents. We have specific areas that they will be picking kids up for our car riders, and no one will be allowed outside of campus in our buildings unless there's special permission. We're really trying to limit who is on campus and any kind of exposure. Mask, personal protection equipment, and health policies. We have a variety of masks for our kids. We also know that our kids will be arriving daily with their own mask. We will be asking kids to put those into baggies, put those in their backpacks, and then we'll have clean masks for them to put on every day. And then they'll switch it out going home. We'll wash those daily for our kids. We also have the clear mask if kids want to use them. Unfortunately, we've got some feedback that they are not comfortable for extended periods of time, but if kids or staff would like to wear them, we have them for them to access. School health policies, we have developed some tools. We're following the CDC on what all we're doing. We have the Healthy at Work policies that is also linked within our document. Screening and school exclusions, all staff have to, and they have been since the summer, completing a daily form. Are they exhibiting any symptoms? We also ask that staff, if they suspect that they are ill, do not come to campus. They are to contact our nurse prior to coming, as well as their supervisor. Sanitation and environmental standards, our staff, Rick Westerfield and his team, and Andrew Hurrigan, who is our lead for the COVID-19 implementation plan on campus. They have been very busy working with our dorm director, Doug Brewer, in just safety across campus. We have purchased several what they call misters. It's like what the airplanes are doing when they're trading in between passengers coming on and exiting the plane, and they'll go in and do a quick sanitize. We have those misters for campus. I was just talking to Rick a few minutes ago. They're going to be able to purchase the 1st of March, because that's when they're becoming available, the misters that you carry on your back. And they'll allow for, right now, our misters are kind of small, but we're going to be able to purchase larger capacity. But all of our buildings will have these misters so that they can be used in classrooms and in the dorm. We have signage across campus that about hand washing, even though we have the foam and in our areas across the school. At the end of the day, CDC says hand washing with soap is the best. So we'll be working with our dorm staff and our teachers to make sure kids are doing that. We've also taken our PRIDE guidelines for success and applied those to keeping safe at school. Any questions? That is also as part of our reopening plan, we have what's called a COVID mitigation toolkit that staff, all the directors are doing this weekly checklist for all of the areas across campus to make sure that it is safe and that we're sustaining that safety. So it's about 30 some odd pages, 36 pages that we go through weekly to make sure that we're keeping campus safe. So these are our two primary documents that we're using on campus as part of our safety procedures. Our staff have gotten their first round of vaccine for those who have elected to take the vaccine. It was not mandatory, so some have taken it and some have not. So any questions? Nancy.
Yes.
The spotlight. Okay.
Oh, hold on just a second.
So my name is Nancy Perry, and you talked about the classrooms, but I'm wondering if there are, oh, I'm sorry. Scott, are you trying to get my attention? Oh, okay. Sorry. He had to adjust his view. Can you see me okay? So in the classroom, I'm just wondering what the number of students you have limited to, 5, or what's the max amount of students and how they'll be arranged. And if there are more than 8, possibly 10, will you have something like the plexiglass barriers set up for those students in class?
Nancy, that's a great question. What we've gone through, a few things that we have to have in place. We have to have seating charts for every classroom. That's part of the contact tracing. But a desk in every classroom have been measured to be 6 feet or more apart. The question earlier, somebody had asked about the plexiglass between each of the desks. While that sounds great, it is another item that we have to clean each class change. The health department says as long as we're 6 feet apart, that we are social distancing. In areas like our front desk, related services where you'll have the physical therapist and the student very close together, we have put up plexiglass. In the library, the checkout station, we have plexiglass, but for each of our desk areas, we do not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other?
This is Scott Hahn. Oh, yeah. Okay, I did have a question. People in the community have been asking about substitute teachers being able to get vaccines. And I'm not sure if there was an announcement or if there's an appropriate way to inform everyone all at once. But ASL tutors, substitute teachers, they all would fall under that category. And I'm wondering if they're coming to the school, then they would be required, to meet these guidelines. And I would like to have a way to talk with them, share that information with them all at once. Do you have something already in place?
Scott, we surveyed substitute teachers in the fall.
Could
I'm
you
sorry, I got to make sure I can see the interpreter.
Could you spotlight the interpreter?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Are we good? Okay, so
I'm sorry, time out just a second. I don't see the interpreter.
Am I spotlighted? There we go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
okay.
Okay, go ahead.
We surveyed substitute teachers in the fall, and only one substitute teacher responded that they were willing to substitute. And that substitute teacher has assisted us since the fall in some different capacities. That person reached out about getting a shot. We got them a shot. One other person contacted me. We were limited on the amount of vaccines that we had. And if we had extra, Anybody who reached out, we tried to get that, but we did not advertise across the board because we did not have that amount of vaccines to make available. I've had 2 subs reach out, and those, well, actually 4, 2 were from the dorm, but they were unable to take them because they were in quarantine. So the ones that reached out to us today, we discussed, we'll be sending out a survey again to substitutes to see if they're willing to come in. But we ourselves had limited, and the extras we tried to make available to those who reached out to us.
Okay. And then what about the ASL tutors? Was there an opportunity? I mean, the foundation could let them know something. Who would be a contact person, the nurse, or?
If you can give a list to me, I'll pass those along to Kelly. But if there's availability,
Okay.
we'll try to support that. But we had 44 vaccines, and I think 2 or 4 more became available because some other people dropped out, and that's the only reason they were able to get that. So there may not be extra. If there is, and our staff can't take them. But again, I don't know about that first round, Scott. If they've not gotten the first round, we'll talk to the health department. But if you have some folks that are interested, we'll see what we can do. But that's really kind of out of my hands. But we'll try.
Okay, thank you. People just have been reaching out to me, and I haven't had an answer for them. And so I wanted to talk with someone who knew, so that I was giving the right information. Thank you. My second question is, I've heard about hybrid plans for instruction. If school were to go back in person, is there discussion about that?
Yes, we've had discussion, and we've made a decision on how hybrid will be taught. We have a handful that are not, returning virtually. And so we're working with teachers to have those classes for virtual occur at the same time that our students are in class on campus. However, virtual is at a reduced amount during the day due to eye fatigue. So team leads right now are working on schedules to develop for our kids on virtual.
Okay, thank you. I do have another question, Toya. Oh, I'm sorry. Nope, I'm sorry, I don't. We can go on.
Okay, any other questions from any other board members regarding our reopening plan?
This is Debbie. I do.
Okay, hold on just a second. Let me pin you or spotlight you.
I just have a simple question. I'm wondering if KDE has considered to start small with students coming back. For instance, maybe with only day students coming initially the first week and then growing that number as time goes on. Is that something that was considered?
We looked at some different things, and because our numbers are small to begin with, it's hard to say to one group, you can't come back, and another group. If our numbers had been a lot smaller, we might have looked at something like that. And hold on just a second. I have a Jacob Perkins trying to admit. Does anybody know who that is?
Yes, Toya, he's with KDE Communications. He's writing an article on our meeting, And he was
Okay, sure.
listening, but he couldn't hear because
Okay.
the audio now.
All
So I
right,
sent
got
him
it.
the link.
Thank you, Carolyn. So at the end of the day, because our classes are all small, we're bringing them all back, that of those who want to return.
Any other questions, Scott said?
Debbie, did that answer your question?
I don't know if they can see me because I'm not spotlight. Okay, there we go.
Are you spotlighted, Sarah?
Yes, now. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is Debbie. Yeah, thank you. I did have one more question. I'm wondering what the rationale is for the students whose parents who opted not to come back to campus. Was it because of the high percentage rate of COVID in their hometowns? Or was it fear? Or I'm just curious what their rationale was.
Some shared, some did not, Debbie. I know that we have some medically fragile students who are choosing, whose families are choosing to keep them at home. We have some that fall
Sure.
into that high risk health
Yeah.
category that they're keeping at home.
Okay.
But as for the others, that we did not ask for the rationale. It's just we are to give them the choice.
Okay. Thank you. And Nancy Perry has a comment. Okay, can everyone see me? So for the past year, since I guess it was February 2020 until now, well, yeah, March, you're right. Thank you. Yes. I couldn't remember. It's been so long, but yes, March. Thank you for the correction. So March 2020 until now, which has almost been an entire year. I'm curious how the students have been doing thus far. Are they struggling? Are they succeeding? Are they frustrated? You know, I'm just wondering, because I know that there are a lot of mental health issues that our students struggle with, that also can come out of staying home and being isolated without an ability to communicate with their family, that can cause layering issues. And so I just wondered how that was affecting them academically and emotionally.
That's a great question that you've asked. We have some who have thrived and done very well. We have others due to language deprivation who have, struggled. Our mental health team has continued to meet weekly. Our mental health team has lessons weekly for our students and continue to meet with them. Our counselors are doing one-on-one counseling. Some have, we've also made some home visits to students. We also went through a process this year to identify what we call Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 students. And our Tier 1 students are doing fine. They're surviving with virtual and they're doing very well. Tier 2 are those who are doing okay on virtual, and we need to differentiate a little bit more for them. And then our Tier 3 students are those students who are not thriving. We see them missing a lot of classes. We see them not completing assignments and just really struggling. Those students we had ARCs on and met to really identify a plan to meet their needs. Some of these kids, our outreach staff and our teachers are meeting them out in their home district at their local school so that we can meet face-to-face with them. So we've tried to really think outside the box. Our teachers have done a tremendous job of with technology and trying to differentiate different things. They would have what you call synchronous and asynchronous. The asynchronous instruction, meaning that they would build lessons that the kids could access anytime, whereas the synchronous is they're all meeting together as a classroom. So our teachers have been so creative and supportive towards our kids. Another thing that we've seen is some of our very high performing students that we would have never in a million years thought would struggle. But when you removed our campus supports and being at campus every day and having that family and community, they really have struggled. And with some of our kids, it's not language deprivation, it's not the issue, it's not having our campus in that community. So we've seen a variety, but there are a few kids that actually, some even thrive better probably at home than they did at campus. It's amazing. So we see it all. Thank you for asking that, Nancy.
I'm sure. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on reopening? Okay. Are we ready to go on to discuss budget? Okay. Our KDE budget allocations this year in our general funds was 500,000, and we have spent. We have a balance right now of 345,000. Our campus operations, we were allocated 135,000. This is monies that we use for custodial, campus, anything that comes in under that 20,000. This is the budget that campus needs, fix faucets or something that's broke, maintenance. This is the money that comes out of. One item actually that I'm looking that I did not put on here is what we call our 13F2 account. I'll look at that as our contingency or savings rainy day fund. And we have approximately 1.1 million in that account. Those funds, the state funds, end on June 30th. So with teachers, they've had an allocated amount for instruction, which actually we're doing fine this year. So anything that they've really asked for, they've received. But we have to have our general monies, the state monies spent prior to June 30. So we will really, we're working from a budget standpoint to have all of those, that money really allocated by really May 1st. We really want to get our spending out as much as possible because we don't want to leave any of this money unspent. This is money that the state can take back and put back into the general pot. Any questions on our general or campus operations?
This is Scott. Yes. I did have a question. The $500,000 that was allocated, is that yearly or is that or by year or 2 years?
That's yearly, Scott. This historically in the past, this allocation since I've been here has varied from 900,000 to right at $1 million. You have to understand this 500,000 allocation came at a time that the state was going through major budget cuts. So the 500 is what each of the schools received. And as you can tell, we have been very, not frugal, we have really managed that money very well.
Okay. I had a follow-up question. It's my understanding, and this is from in the past, that the legislature gives about $9 to $10 million to Kentucky School for the Deaf, or to actually KDE rather. Is that still true?
They do. What's not on here, Scott, because I don't manage that part, is our personnel cost.
Okay.
So the monies that you see are the monies that I guess I manage on campus. We have about, don't hold me to this, but it's about 94% of that around 10 million goes to pay
Okay,
for
that's what I was
personnel.
wanting to know. Okay.
10 million for what?
10 million is typically around what we're allocated each year. So that's a great question, Scott.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's an improvement from years past then, because typically it was maybe 8%. So I'm glad to see that it's up to 94%. That's for staff.
And don't hold me totally to that 94, but it's about in there. IDA, that money is awarded every year and it's based on child count. So if you go up 1 or 2 kids, you'll see a little bit of a variation. And you can see in 1920, we were allocated about 109,000. In 2021, we were allocated 107. Of course, we had a large graduating class last year, and those few $1,000s shows up in our allocation. Federal monies you have longer than you do state. So you'll see that those monies for 1920 will end this September, and the monies for this year will end next September. We are purchasing, we're making some large purchases in our library with books. Jane Painter is working with Renee Combs on that. So, and then we're meeting with staff. I asked them on roll call to do their wish list. And I didn't tell them why I was doing this, but we have instructional monies to be able to pretty much get anything that the teachers are wanting, as long as it's aligned to meet the kids' needs. I mean, they can't have a hot tub in their classroom, but if it's for instruction, we should be able to pretty much get it. And then the last bundle of money is our CARES money. And this came at a time when we did not have much money in our general. And because this money was awarded to states to help during COVID-19, we have been able to direct a lot of our spending on instruction, sanitation, for just getting our schools ready for COVID and keeping everything safe. All of those monies we have been able to pay out of this CARES money that was awarded to us. We still have $1,040,000 remaining that we need to spend by September 30. And that sounds wonderful. Sometimes it's hard to spend all of this because there's still parameters in which we spend this money. We'll be looking at summer school, summer programs. We've submitted a budget to KDE on what we would like to spend future monies on. And that's still under review, but summer school, extra additional support for instruction. So there's a lot there. Security is a new piece, so we've asked for some items there. So when we have that finalized, I'll bring that back to advisory board and share that with you. So any questions on that?
Nancy had a comment.
Hold on just a second, Nancy.
Can everybody see me yet? Okay, the budget looks pretty good. So I'm hoping that things work out the way it's planned and everything is used accordingly. You did mention about summer and having a budget. So that makes me think of summer camps and whatnot. Are you meaning for students who are maybe behind academically and struggling, maybe in some of their courses that they're currently taking, that they would come to maybe a summer camp of sorts to catch up?
We are looking at trying to do 4 weeks of summer school in June. That doesn't mean a student is committed to do all 4 weeks. Our focus in the past on summer school has been more enrichment. This focus will be on recoupment on what students have missed. We'll also be looking at a credit recovery for our high school students as well.
Okay. Okay, great. Any other questions Scott's asking?
Okay. At this time, I would like to move on, and I don't have slides dedicated to this, to introduce our new staff. I think one has been able to join us today. Hold on just a second. Hold on just a second. One is trying to get in. First off, I would like to introduce, and I'm going to, let's see, spotlight him. I can find him on here. Here he is Jonathan Woodall. He is our systems analyst. And Jonathan, you want to wave to everybody? Actually, Jonathan, if you want to unmute and just kind of introduce yourself and tell them what we've got you doing.
Okay, like she said, I'm the systems analyst. I'm basically am in charge of anything on the network. I've worked for the state before. I worked here at Danville at the prison as a contractor. And then I left the state for a little bit, and I'm glad to be back.
I have to say, Jonathan has jumped in with both feet, and we are very pleased. He's here with us. I know Jared was bragging on him today, but now we can't brag on him too much because his head will swell, and we don't want that. So,
Right.
Okay. All right, Jonathan, we're glad you're here. All right, and then our next one, and she's getting logged in right now. see if I can find her. Well, hold on. Tara,
I think it's T-A-R-A, Sarah.
let's see. Well, she admitted. Does anybody see somebody on camera you don't know?
Yes, she's here.
Is she here? Okay. Let me, I'm not finding her on my end. I know.
You have to
Jeff,
make your shared screen smaller, Jeff is saying, so that you can make us bigger.
there she is. I see her now. Okay. All right, Tara. Tara. Hi, Tara. Okay. I don't think she realizes she's on yet. Tara is our new fiscal officer. And she has also hit the ground running. As you know, we've kind of been in transition for the past year, and or you may or may not know, to get a fiscal officer in here, and she is exactly who we need. So we're thrilled that she's on board. Tara, can you, are you there? All right. Tara is one of the ones that's telecommuting at this time, and she lives kind of far out in the country, so she might be having some technical issues. But we are thrilled to have her. Tara comes to us from actually the state. She was over the trust for all the unemployment trust fund, all the unemployment across the state. So she comes to us with a lot of vast knowledge. So we're happy to have her. Okay, miscellaneous. I attended my, some of you all may remember, may not. I was in a leadership academy with CEASD, which is the National Administrators Conference for deaf schools. And so we had our I guess final meeting, but we all said we didn't want it to be our final meeting. But that was well attended by all of that was in the leadership class. I think I was in there with from California, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Oklahoma, Indiana. It was really nice to see all of the different schools and what we've been working on across the year. Also, this coming up week is Education and Advocacy Virtual Summit through Gallaudet. And so there's legislative day. We're going to try to get our students involved in that. There's a workshop for administrators, and there's a virtual tour of Gallaudet. So that is coming up that some of our staff will be involved in. We've had monthly PD through CASD that leadership has been involved with in attending. So we've been heavily involved with them. But that is all that I have for my principal update. If you all have any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Doesn't look like it.
Okay, with that being said, T. Hewlett.
Oh, and Scott saying the same thing you are, Mr. Hewlett.
T. Hewlett has joined us, and he and I have a presentation about the 6-year plan. So T, I'll just move the slides if you kind of want to go there and Do you see the slide, T?
Yes.
Okay. Let me
So what-
spotlight you, T.
Okay.
Okay,
So are we ready?
ready.
Okay. Well, thank you for letting me be a part of your meeting today as we try to give you a little bit of an update and where we've been, where we're going, what the future looks like, what we're asking for, and then maybe what's happening right now. On your screen, the 6-year plan that would end in June of this year, you'll notice the projects that we've been able to complete over the past 6 years. And we must say, we think that's pretty aggressive because in the past, our funding's been very limited. And so working really hard with the legislature and the department, we've managed to get some additional funding. And so we're very thankful for that. But as you know, the new elementary was completed a couple of years ago. Argo phases 3 and 4 to that building are done. We're in phase 5, as we'll talk about in a minute, and one last phase to complete that. The high voltage electric project was critical to the campus. The antiquated system, we were having failures to where we literally had to shut the campus down and send our students home. And we were able to get that fixed and modernized, and also able to feed from 2 ends of the campus, and then be able to separate buildings if necessary. Grow Hall Kitchen phase 1 updated where the ladies work and the serving lines. We've just finished campus. When we call it security, and the lighting is what makes it secure. We've got some more security needs we'll talk about in a few minutes, but that's finished. And so I hope that you've had time, or at least an opportunity, to go by the campus either early in the morning or later in the evening when those lights are on. We think it's done a tremendous job of illuminating the beauty of the campus and buildings and facilities. So plus it will make our campus much safer when our students are back on. We've tried to eliminate what we call blackout spots and dead spots where there could be danger that our students wouldn't ordinarily be able to see that. And so we're really pleased with that upgrade. The fiber upgrade that we did a few years ago so that we could get our students to a one-to-one program with Chromebooks or whatever devices that the school chose. And that's now, in hindsight, that was critical with this, with the pandemic and COVID. Without that, we would have been in a real dilemma in how we served our students. And then new parking behind Argo or behind Fosdick has been completed. For Rick and his staff, giving them a better place to put their vehicles and open up that passageway where kids are not as likely to step out from behind a vehicle, and which could create a hazard there. The projects we have in progress right now is Argo phase 5. And if you go by campus, you'll notice we're working really hard. The exterior windows from the hallway that you would go down Argo and then all the way around the building envelope are being replaced. The back wall next to the greenhouse is finished, except there's some infill panels that weren't ready that we'll put in later, but they should be here in the next few weeks. There's a little bit of a slowdown due to COVID and companies and being shut down. Right now, they're actually on the back side. They've taken out the windows in the ag building and replacing those. And then they'll work on across the back from ag to the shop class and then into the art classes and around the building, and that will finish that out. We're on a tight timeline due to students returning in March, but we think we can have all of the windows in with the exception of the art room. So all the final pieces of a phase 5 will be centered around that room, but we'll be able to section it off so that we can finish that building out and complete without interrupting the art class. Depending on what happens, there could be a possible day or two that they would relocate, but by and large, we think we can accommodate those to make it safe and finish up that project. We'll know more about it on Tuesday of next week when we have our next progress update, but talking with Matt, the job superintendent today, that's what we're looking at. I tried to get a detailed update so I could share with you, and that's the projections that we're looking at right now. The only question that we still have is due to the lead time from factories and manufacturers who were shut down during COVID, and therefore they got behind. And so that sometimes leads to a slight delay on some of our projects. You'll notice next the Jacobs Hall boiler. I'm really excited to announce they're finally started. Our paperwork got hung up in Frankfurt over the holidays, and so we couldn't get started, and that's been a little bit of a frustration for me, and I know for Scott and maybe the alumni. It's just really hard, we had to work around that challenge. But Babcon arrived yesterday morning, and so they're in the basement doing the rough end to the panel boxes for the electric. And once we get that done, then we'll start construction on the backside of the parking lot for the building that will hold the boiler. We'll be boring underneath the parking lot to access and bring steam into the building. We couldn't put the boiler inside due to the fact we could never meet today's code for what needed to be done. So we had to come with an alternate plan. And once we get that finished, then we will come back around at the back and redo sidewalks that we had to take up that were broken. The trees had, the tree roots, as you know, had made that a ADA hazard. And so we're going to wait until we're finished and this project's out of the way. Then we would work with the alumni and Scott and that group to look at how you would like to see that go back. We did save the brick that were back there. Those were all picked up literally by hand and stacked up over behind the current maintenance building, so that whenever we get ready to finalize what that new entrance can look like, we'll be able to use the brick as you see fit. So we did save that and secure it so that it would be available to us for future use. You'll notice the equipment shed. That's been something we've tried to find a creative way to request that for some time, and we were never able to do that. And finally, a few months ago, in working with KDE and DECA in one of my finance meetings, we ran across what the state will approve called an equipment shed. We had tried barn and a little bit of everything since it was for the ag part more than anything. But anyway, we do have a drawing, and I have some funds available in old capital accounts. And Ms. Roby mentioned to you a minute ago about her budget and things that are less than $20,000. Let me, for those who may or may not remember, the projects that I'm involved with are $20,000 and higher. I work with Rick on anything that's smaller to try to help him, but primarily my projects are all capital projects that exceed from 20,000 on. But what we were able to get in the last few years were some old capital accounts that belonged to KSD. But the way they were set up, they were very restricted, and we had never been able to find a really good way to access them. And so we've been able to do some creative projects. And I want to compliment Rick for his diligence in looking around campus to find ways to use these small pockets of money. And then also I would want to give thanks and gratitude to Karen Worth at KDE, who always finds a way to make this work for us. And she's a tremendous partner and asset to the campus. And so between that partnership, we've been able to do the blacktopping that was behind Fosdick. We had renovated Fosdick. We've been able to do some other things that the campus would have liked to have had that otherwise would have had to come out of some of that budget money that you've seen. So those are some positives there, but the equipment shed will go behind Fosdick across adjacent to the new blacktop, where you would see the ag tractor and the implements and all that. And we'll be able to get them out of the weather, which is, you can't leave your equipment out and hope for it to last. And it will help us, hopefully. We've had a little bit of a problem with people borrowing our equipment late at night and not bringing it back. I'll just leave it at that. So maybe we can secure our campus a little more so that those people who like our things maybe better than we do won't be able to take them. And, because our monies are so restricted and few, we don't want someone stealing our equipment. So that equipment shed in the next fiscal meeting that I have with finance is on the table. And so we're, how do we move that forward? And that's something that we're going to be able to do out of an old capital money. And that will not take money out of the budget that Ms. Roby shared with you earlier. So that's our 6-year plan that ends, and the project that we have, the projects that we have going on right now. Before we move on, if you have a question, certainly I'd be glad to try to answer that for you.
I have a question. This is Nancy.
Hold on just a second.
Thank you, Mr. Hewlett. I appreciate your comments and updating us on the plan and as it draws near. I appreciate all the work that you put into that. I have 2 questions. First, I'm wondering about the completion of a few more projects on campus that need to be done before the 200th anniversary that we'll be soon celebrating to enhance our campus as we begin to draw visitors near and far, and hoping that they get to enjoy our beautiful campus. Are we able to complete those projects before the 200th year anniversary?
If you're referencing the one that are in progress, the answer is yes. And if we can get Argo Phase 6, we're trying to put funding into that now. It would be able to done. It's primarily some new ramps and things at the back, and some HVAC work and things. So the answer, I think, is an optimistic yes. I don't think that there should be any holdup. You know, once we have the dollars allocated and I can get accounts established, I would think that the Jacobs Hall boiler should be done late spring, midsummer. You know, it'll be done, and then we'll be able to go back and do the landscaping and fix that, so that the entrance, when we do have that, you know, the visitors and the celebration, that should be a welcoming point to that beautiful building. And looking at it with Mr. Hahn sometimes back, I think with the trees that we were able to take down and fix that, it just shows the beauty of Jacob Hall, especially from across the road back there. So we want to make sure that there's a lot of input into what that looks like when we put that back, so it is as attractive as possible. And you know, then once I have those ideas, my job is not to design it. My job is to simply get input and get it drawn and in place, and then see that it happens. And so once that we have that input as to how that should come about, certainly we should be able to have all of this done in plenty of time for the celebration.
Great, thank you. My second question is, I recall it must be over 8 years ago, maybe, that there was a time that KSD Advisory Board had discussed some concerns about Nancy Lee Hall and, you know, its vacancy and what the plans were for it. And I'm just wondering if that's being considered at all for any renovations for an auditorium, for a theater. I know there are a lot of ideas that were thrown out, dreams for Nancy Lee Hall, but I'm just wondering, are those still being pursued, or have plans changed and other things are now being finalized instead?
Good question. In just a moment, we're going to flip the screen to the new 6-year plan.
Are you ready?
Address in part your question. From the timing, it was about 7 years ago this month that we actually did a Saturday meeting in Danville with Mr. Begley and Wilton. I think Scott was there, to the deaf alumni community about future projects. And Nancy Lee Hall was a focus at that time. You know, one of the strategies or the struggles maybe on the end when I advocate for money is it's hard to get money for a building if we can't show how it's going to be used, and is that a good use of our money. And so that's going to be our challenge. You know, right now the money that's been spent on that building is simply to remediate it from the weather and the raccoons and possums that were wanting to use it as a hotel. You know, we had to get rid of them, get the critters out of there. And so at least at this point, we've done that, you know, to try to, but as everyone knows, the longer a building stays vacant, it's just really hard on the infrastructure. You know, buildings, when they're vacant, it's almost like they start to deteriorate really quick versus when they're live and vibrant. And so that's going to be our challenge, but we do have it in the 6-year plan. Now, and we'll be glad to talk about that a little more. So it has not been taken off the table. It's just a matter of, at what point would it ever get funded? And my guess is if it's ever a reality, at least at this point with what the campus needs, the 6-year plan is really 3 bienniums. The legislature does a 2-year budget every 2 years. So this would be in that period of time. But we can look at that in just a minute whenever
Are you ready?
we're ready to move that forward.
Okay. All right. Are you ready to, do you want to go over this before we hit that page T?
Sure. Yeah, these are the numbers that you're seeing are the monies that the legislature allocated up until in the 7 years I've been there, each year $675,000 was all that was allocated to Kentucky School for the Deaf and Kentucky School for the Blind.
Sorry, Mr. T, could you repeat that number? I missed it. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. 675,000. And that was divided between both KSB and KSD, with the FFA camp getting 25,000 off the top. So that really meant 375,000 per campus. That was a very minimal amount of money to try to do the needs and repairs that both campuses needed. I want to just thank KD because they really went to bat for our campuses, trying to get additional funding. And in 2018, we got $6 million. And though that sounds like a lot, and it is, but our needs are still great, but it did provide the new elementary school, the Margaret Marshall Elementary Building was out of there. And then in the next biennium, we were able to get 1.5 million that helped us. We're in the middle of a roof and HVAC projects, study so that we can look at prioritizing what buildings that are going to be addressed first. And so that's money that's there. I know that the Department of Education is working with the governor and the state budget directors to look at additional funding for this year. We've seen what's in the governor's budget, but at the end of the day, that will be a negotiation between he and the legislature, the House and the Senate. So we're not really looking at that because we don't have any idea how that'll play out. But we are moving ahead with the roof and HVAC improvements for the campuses so that we can look at what those needs are going to be. But Ms. Roby has flipped us over to the new 6-year planning, and look down through your projects. Now this is just the total. And when you look at that $61.1 million, it sort of takes your breath. That's a lot of money. It would be spread out though over 3 bienniums, so roughly $20 million per biennium. And we know that's very optimistic and aggressive, but what we've done was try to take numbers off of projects that I've been involved in the last couple of years and get an idea of how, what will that look like? What would it take to do everything on the wish list that at least from where I sit, looking at the mechanical systems, roofs, and then campus needs. Again, this is just a very broad. I don't want you to think that this is dialed in very specific, but you can just look at some of the numbers. To do the roof projects for Brady, Middleton, Grow, and Kerr would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $4.2 million. The HVAC that's needed in Thomas Gym, which would air condition the gym and then take care of the systems for the rest of the building. Brady Hall in Middleton would very easily be $4.5 million. If we were to go into Brady Hall and redo the technology department that's currently shut down, the doors are shut to it so that Jared and his staff could go back into having all their systems in one place and be able to work out of there. Also, it would require some structural work, and then to renovate the dorms in the bottom would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $7 million. We want to do a project around campus, and I know that Scott, I think for the last 7 years, ever since I met him, we've been trying to do a security, one call, the whole security piece. It seems like we've never really gotten there, but this would put cameras, security card readers at doors, fencing and gates to really secure our campus so that our students are in the safest environment possible, and access to buildings would be very limited. Keys seem to find their way to a lot of different people's hands, and with card readers, we could really limit that. And there's just so many safety benefits to that. But that project, very easily, I think, Scott, when we started, was somewhere between 350 and 400,000. Now it would probably move us into the 1.5 million range. The Argo Phase 5 that I mentioned earlier, to finish up some ramps and HVAC and finish that envelope so that building would finally be done, I think conservatively would run somewhere in the $800,000 range. Then you move over to Kerr Hall. There's some structural issues there. And when you see the structure issues that we talk about in Brady and Kerr, Middleton, one of the things that we were aware of, and it became very apparent when we were getting ready to build the new elementary, is KSD sits on a number of limestone faults. So the ground underneath is rock solid to a point, but sinkholes are everywhere. And you have to remember, within a mile of the campus, we have a rock quarry. And so when they're blasting and doing all these things, and the earth naturally shifts anyway, so we have to look at how does that impact what we're doing. So that when you look at the structural repairs for Kerr, Thomas, and those, that's what that is. That's looking, how do we make sure, because there are some stress cracks, it's safe. We've had structural engineers during the project that have looked at these, but we believe that there's going to need to be some remediation, because what it does, as that building moves and shifts, it creates voids where the building can take on water. And when that happens, then you have structural, the integrity of the structure weakens. And then the other nemesis is mold, if water gets into the wrong places. And so those are pieces that we would like to be able to address. And then from a safety standpoint for our kids, with that being able to include a walkway from Marshall Hall to Kerr. So just in the rain and the weather, our students have they're not out in the elements as much. The Middleton dorm needs lighting, HVAC, and upgrades. And to do that, I think conservatively speaking, we just did a project in Louisville, and I think that would be a $6 million project, and that would be getting a lot done and depending upon cost, but I think we could get that building done for around that number. And then to finish Fosdick out, there's still some things that need to be done. That we've done some projects, and Rick's maintenance staff can get in there and they've got room, but if we could complete that building out, then that would give storage, that would give them a place to have all their product instead of having part of it in Brady Hall. They could let all their deliveries come to one place. And I think that would make it easier for them to monitor and to distribute them out to the campus. And then Ms. P, here's your question. Lee Hall with auditorium. Here's where it shows up in there. To address the needs of that building, and then to take part of it down to create an auditorium area. We really believe that number is somewhere in the $15 million range. And so when we ask for $15 million, we're going to have to be able to justify all the needs. I think we can, just centered around an auditorium of performing arts and all that could go on there. But, we're going to have to sell it to a larger crowd. And so it's still in there, as a possibility. But that's a pretty stout number, for a project until we can show how that building would need to be used daily. And then finally, you'll notice that Beecham, Barbie, and Bruce, that's doing the same thing there that we would finish up with Fosdick, since it's already got some of the work done. But that would allow us to completely renovate those buildings as well in future use, if the campus saw that necessary. Again, this list is not in any kind of priority order. It's simply going through it and looking at the needs of the campus. And so in the first biennium, we would have to look at what we believe to be the most important and the most viable, and then bring the partners, not just with the advisory board, but then that brings the staff at the Department of Education on board. and really sit down and look at those buildings and from a campus standpoint, how you're going to use them. And then how do we justify asking for whatever that price tag is? Again, these numbers are based on projects that we've done in the last few years. And then obviously our best guess, because until you actually get into a project, there can be so many unknowns that you don't know. So we've tried to take that into effect in consideration based on projects we've done. But again, it's a ballpark figure over the next 3 biennium of 61 million, which would be 20 million per biennium. So that's how we've arrived at that. Yes.
One thing, just a little bit of a bird walk, because the question will probably be on where's the pool. Do you kind of want to give them an update on kind of where we are with the pool right now and why it's not listed here at this time?
Sure. Yeah, the pool's actually on a list right now that we're already working on. But what we have to do, and we had a meeting scheduled 2 Fridays ago, well, 2 weeks from this Friday, a finance meeting with myself, Karen at KDE, and Frida from DECA. And we were trying to look at how does this all play out. And I had to cancel due to the passing of my grandmother, and I invited so that they could go on, but they elected to stop that meeting until I could be there. And also Scott Craig from the department has come on board to be an asset and a resource to us. And so we haven't rescheduled that yet. But to the pool, the next step is to, we've put money in an account, is to secure the services of a structural engineer, because we're going to have to do an in-depth analysis of that pool. We redid, the money that was raised, we have all new pumps and all that's fine and working. We do have some windows on the end that have to be infilled. We have some leaking, but that's not a big cost issue. The issue is still when the campus was having to pay about a $5,000 a month water bill, and the city of Danville said we were losing in excess of 1 million gallons a month, and no one knows where it's going. What we do know is that it did not go through the regular drain system where you would have to pay like on your water bill at home, whatever water use you have, you pay a sewage bill on. We know that it did not go through there. And before Tommy Barnett left, we put dye in the pool and we turned the water off and let it drop. And we know that the pool drops about 5 to 6 inches and then it stopped. But the dye did not, when we pull water samples, the dye did not go through those pumps. And so the question becomes, somewhere in that infrastructure, and some of it we can see, there's hallways back under the pool on each side. When you go in there, there is some deterioration due to the humidity and the chemicals, the chlorine and things there. It has softened some concrete and that drops and it's cracked. But structurally, it hasn't done that kind of damage yet. So that would need to be remediated. The problem that we've got to find before we can really move forward is simply, where does that water go? Because the campus cannot afford a $5,000 a month water bill, and nor does the city of Danville want us losing 1 million gallons. So that's going to be our challenge, and it's going to require people with expertise. So we're going to, again, we've put money aside, and that's at the direction of Robin Kinney, my supervisor there out of KDE. It's a priority. And to Dr. Glass, it's not falling off the radar, just that, the interruption from our meeting a couple of weeks ago, but we have to have some concrete knowledge and information of what the needs of that pool are, because at that point, then we've got to determine what's the cost. Is it a $100,000 fix or is it $1 million fix? And at that point, then where does that money come from? So those are the questions that are in front of us right now. But the first step is to get the structural engineer on board and begin to do some analysis of what we do know, and then try to determine how do we go through that pool and it encased in concrete to determine what happened to all that water. And that's going to be a challenge. I don't want anyone to be fooled, and I don't know a cost, but I'm rather confident that it will not be an will be an inexpensive fix. I think it will requires a lot of dollars. And so we want to make sure we're good stewards with our dollars. But at whatever point we finally get all that data, then it'll come to the table and a decision can be made. But for now, to Ms. Roby's question, the next step is just to find out what kind of shape is the pool really in. We thought that fixing the pumps and the drains and the windows would take care of that. And as we got into it, there were some other things that have become issues. And I just would say that because it's much like Nancy Lee Hall. You know, that pool sat dormant for quite a while. And when things are not being used, then deterioration starts and you have no idea how that can impact the actual use of the building or the pool and what's the cost that's associated with that. So without questions, I'll turn it over to you.
Jeff has a comment.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. T. Thank you for so much. It's been a long time since I've seen you, maybe a few years. So it's good to see you again. Thank you for all your hard work. Appreciate your in-depth analysis of our campus. And I know these projects aren't easy. And I think I've told you before, I've been involved with engineering in the past and know that it can get difficult and complicated. So I know there's also a lot of money involved and that can get tricky. And so that 61 million, 65 million, I know that it can be difficult, but I appreciate your work in negotiating with the legislators and convincing them how important our campus is. I know those legislators, they have a lot of money to give and not a lot of time. And so I appreciate that and working with them on our budget. One thing that was a little bit concerning to me was the rock quarry that you mentioned that I wasn't familiar with before. And that's really startled me about spending millions of dollars on these projects on campus and then having the rock quarry. And I'm not exactly sure how close that is to campus. But if they're going to continue their work, does that mean that we'll never have an ending to the work that needs to be done on campus? And so I wonder about the city and the state, they're owning this property. So I'm wondering if that can be addressed with the rock quarry, if there's anything to be done in that regard. Just thinking futuristically about maybe even growing campus. I just hate to see us invest all this time and money and then continue to have issues and we know what the source is. So the second thing is Lee Hall. I know we've been talking about Lee Hall for a long time and our deaf community really cherishes and has a big heart for that building. And we've had big dreams of an auditorium. And just like any other school has an ability to have an auditorium, it feels like KSD at times is the only one that doesn't. And so I know that the blind school has one. And so it would just be really wonderful to have something like that here. I know that there are counties close by to KSD that also have gotten auditoriums, and it's nice to see that in the plan for continual discussion. I hope that you will be relentless in that with the legislature and convincing them how important it is and an asset to our campus, and there will be much use out of it. I know we've been putting off I don't know if you want to even say neglecting facilities. And so I know that there's things that have to be neglected because we're prioritizing things, but then that incurs its own costs. And so with Lee Hall deteriorating as quickly as it is, and the cost and expense to remodel it can maybe be a little bit more than that building might be worth. I wonder if you have two sides, people that are wanting to go ahead and tear it down and others that are wanting to continue to invest that money into it. And so I would urge you to question the community about what they'd like to do with that building, because there might be two sides to that. I mean, although it would be wonderful to have something for the kids, be beneficial to our campus and community, the hearing community as well, not just KSD, just as they've used our pool in the past. I know that there was also a mention of the impact of the rock quarry and how mold and water can settle. And so I hope that you'll continue to work on that and try to alleviate some of those issues. In regards to the pool, maybe if we had to, I don't know if it's been considered about making a second gym, if we had to, as a last resort, if it was unable to be fixed, that maybe solar panels, things like that. There's a lot more technology now. It might be a cheaper route, maybe a better route compared to some renovations. I don't want us only focus on renovations, because at times we can't fix a problem always. But anyway, just some thoughts. And I just want to thank you, Mr. T, again for sharing those updates.
Thank you. Let me just say one word, because you mentioned a lot of different things. My role, and I do try to advocate for both campuses, but those decisions really rise above where I am. I get a chance to speak, and I'll always speak in as open and honest as I can about what I think needs are, and for our kids. And so we do that, and we're very fortunate that I can say that above me, Robin Kinney and Scott Craig, and those that work at the department, you have great allies on your side, but sometimes the decisions are really tough. And so it requires doing those type things. And so, excuse me for that home phone, but we're all after the same thing. And the key to this whole moving forward is money and working with legislatures. To them, this is not, this wouldn't be a lot of money. To us, it's a tremendous amount of money. And so I would just say that, we'll continue to work forward. This plan will get refined, and then it'll bring all the different parties to the table. We'll talk about it. And then the department will be able to move it forward through their legislative branch and communicate that to the governor's people, maybe, and to the legislatures. I know that we have people on staff at the department that do that, and they too will be great advocates for our programming. And so, we just try to give them the best numbers we can and show them our needs. And then hopefully we can get those people to, really help support the programming that we think is so needy for the students that you all are working for every day. And we appreciate the advisory board and their willingness to come to the table and try to help us give other opinions so that we can do the best we can for the dollars that are there. But I appreciate that.
So in bringing,
I was just going to say thank you, Mr. T. I know that, hang on just one second, Toya. I'm sorry, I wanted to say something. I know that you have put in a tremendous effort and been a great asset to us, and helping with KDE and working with us. And I just want to say thank you for helping better our campus.
so you'll see on the bottom where it says final recommendations due to KDE. T and Rick and I are required to submit a planning form to KDE for February 28th. And then they'll take that planning form and combine it with KSB's. They have to do the same thing. And then they'll make decisions moving forward on the monies that they're going to ask for. So we have to have our recommendations in. So what I'm asking advisory for today, and I'll make notes over, handwritten notes over here, but asking advisory for some of their input on these projects here. As T said, these are some things that, obviously we do need roofs. I mean, we can't have leaking buildings. So, I mean, there's some things on here that most of them are must-haves versus nice-to-haves. But so in looking at this list, what your all's thoughts are on, as T said, nothing is in an order of priority. I will say roofs is at the top because we need roofs. but nothing's in a particular order. And, you know, we want your all's feedback in helping us, giving us input on that final plan that we submit. So we would like your guidance and input.
Thank you, Toya. I did a little bit of homework before this meeting, and I kind of just took a pulse of the community to just check in to see what people were thinking, how they were feeling, and whew, I opened up a can of worms. I've got 3 pages worth of feedback, and I will send it to the board members. I did forget to add Mr. Hewlett, but there was some discussion of several things, mentioning Lee Hall, Middleton Hall, Brady Hall. I mean, a lot of the old dorms that aren't in use, and at the very end, Jacobs Hall. And I know that Jacobs Hall is a unique situation with its placement on campus. But there's a lot of major renovations that are needed in Jacobs Hall. Since 1978 was the last renovations. And so you're talking maybe, several years. And so finding a way to deal with that, but prioritizing for the kids, of course, the buildings and, like you said, the roofs and whatnot. There are a lot of needs that come before. And so it was just a lot of discussion that we've had over the years. None of this is new to us. We had a task force meeting, town hall. Several people showed up. A lot of the same comments and ideas were shared. A lot of the same concerns. Nothing has changed. But trying to figure out the cost, I'll just leave that to the experts and determining what that would be to do all this, but convincing the legislature and kind of reducing that shock value of $61 million. I like the biennium, the $20,000 that does soften the blow a little bit in that regard. But I don't know. I think that the fencing or the gates around campus, I did want to ask, talking about campus being secure, is there discussion about that?
On the fencing, Andrew, our security director, has been, I guess, measuring and identifying where we need fence. Our priority fence area is on the back side of campus and next to the housing community, I guess, on the bottom half. We've had some instances of people taking 4-wheelers, running all hours of the night, which kind of leads us to believe they're just not out for fun. We have trail cams hidden on the trail, and we're catching people. We caught a truck and a trailer moving through there and across the creek. So, you know, we're getting some property damage. They damaged our hayfield this year with 4-wheelers, you know, and we don't want anybody hurt on campus. We do think that they've been running possibly drugs at some point on that back end. We can't prove it. We're working with the police department. So we believe that the fencing and gates are important to do the boundaries. We have signage all across campus, but I don't think people see them anymore. We can put out new signs, which we did, and that has cut a lot of traffic. We have people who think the campus is a dog park, and they'll walk their dogs, and, you know, they're not really doing any harm when no kids are here. But the problem is taking the time to go out and tell them when they can and can't walk. We've had people walking their dogs on campus, and we've had some staff attacked by walkers' dogs. So it's hard to tell one person they can't cut across campus versus the person who's just coming in to park the car because KSD is a beautiful place and they want to go walk. We're a campus for students, and we need to have that security and treat it like a campus. I've gotten to visit several different deaf campuses in the last few years, and every single one that I have gone to has had a fence. And so we're looking at gates, and I know we had a car fly through campus last summer that was going at a very high rate of speed. Fortunately, there were no students on campus. So these are things that we want to really limit access to, because again, the student safety and staff safety are our priority. And so Andrew has been working on trying to cost that out. The front half on 2nd Street would be a very beautiful fence. If you all have ever visited Camp Nelson, it's just a really pretty wrought iron fence, very simple. That would match historically. It wouldn't be as ornate, but it would still be honor what is there across the street at Jacobs. But on the back side would be all business. It'd be a tall fence, and it would be something that we don't want people climbing. So backside, not pretty. It'd be all function. On the front side, it would be, something that's complementary to the campus. We don't want it to look like a prison. We want it to be beautiful, but we want our campus secure. We're also looking at security cameras that would be inside our classrooms and outside our buildings. And the security readers, as T said, somebody leaves, they leave with a key. You ask them to bring the keys back. I even ask, can we hold their check until we get their keys back? And we can't. But we have to go in and change locks, and it's very time consuming in trying to keep up with keys. So Andrew's done a really good job of doing an audit of our keys, but we can't control for that staff who is left that has not returned their keys. So we would like security readers in all of our buildings.
Great. Any feedback from the board?
So if you all had to prioritize, are there any things on this list that you all want to see in this biennium? While we might be able to ask for it all, the likelihood that we're going to get 61 million, we've never gotten 61 million. We may get it, but the likelihood is not. Our last 6-year plan, we had a lot of items on it, but we didn't get to them all because there simply wasn't enough money. So what thoughts do you all have on things that you see that you want to see on campus? I know a lot of the projects that we've done are under the ground or where you don't always see improvements. So we've made a lot of advance, but you just don't always see it. Scott?
Yeah, thank you. I think that the most important part I would agree with are the roofs and the HVAC system. I do think that we have to prioritize those two things to preserve the buildings and the health of our students in regards to potential mold. And in my opinion, as long as I've worked at KSD, I know and I have seen firsthand that the problems that roofs can cause if they're not taken care of. and the HVAC, especially having experienced the gym, Brady Hall, Middleton. There's been major changes. Color, it's a little dark. I think it needs to be boosted, like Marshall Hall, some life breathed into it. But I think that security would also be at the top of my list. The fencing, gates, the security check-in systems, cameras. I think that we have to move those to the top of the list. So roofs and security would be my top two, along with HVAC. The old dorms, I know that we had ideas of using them for visiting teams when we hosted tournaments and different events. That would be another opportunity for them to stay. Parents for things like our family learning vacation during the summer to house them. I know that was the intention of renovating those buildings. With Lee Hall, it would be perfect for community ASL classes in the future, VR offices to be housed there, any other offices, and even a backup building in the event that one of our main buildings were not able to be occupied and had to be closed for renovations for issues of mold. That has happened before, where we've had problems logistically of where we were going to put people. So having Lee Hall as a backup seems like a wise plan to utilize that building. And it could be like a multi-purpose building. We could think of numerous ideas on what to use that building for, as I've mentioned. I know that there's been thoughts of the auditorium, which would be idyllic, but that I think would have to be lower on our list when it comes to comparison of roofs and HVAC and even renovating Lee Hall and those old dorms. I think that we can be more specific about things that we want, but we have to focus on the things that we need first. And I hate to say adding Jacobs Hall to the bottom of our list, but it really isn't meeting the kids' needs in a way other than historical value. And then, of course, us getting ready to celebrate the 200th anniversary, it's become, closer and in view. But I wish that there was a way to find a grant or whatnot to help us kind of break away that monies that could be spent on Jacobs Hall instead of this budget. So, as I mentioned, those are kind of the things that I would like to throw out there as my top things that prioritize when I look at this list. Anybody else? Any other members that'd like to add some input? Debbie Martin said she'd like to say something. Can you spotlight her?
Yeah, hold on just a second.
Okay, thank you. I would love to see them repair Lee Hall just because when we've seen Lee Hall or Walker Hall recently being torn down, lots of people on Facebook have been asking because they don't know what's happening at KSD. There's been comments of, oh, KSD is closing, how horrible, KSD is dying. And, I really would love to see people's spirits lifted by seeing Lee Hall renovated so that people can see KSD is very much alive and that we're not going anywhere, that we're still here, that we're not finished. We have more to do. And so that's just a personal reason why I would like to see that happen. It's so sad to see Walker Hall gone, but in predicting people who don't know our school and aren't as involved, they potentially could be thinking that we're closing or that something awful has happened since that, building, which has been a prominent figure for our campus, is gone. And so I'd like to see Lee Hall lit up again for services. So if thank you, Scott Hahn, saying, yes, you're right, Debbie. I have had comments like that as well about KSD closing. More often than not, they mentioned Lee Hall looking dead, Walker Hall being empty and now gone. And, you know, it puts us in a hard place, and it gives this image that we aren't existence anymore. And with optics, you know, it's all about what you see, right? When people are driving by and walking by, that is their perception. That is what they see, are those front buildings. And so the community and people who are visiting, that's the idea that they get of KSD and our students, our Lee Hall and Walker. And so, yes, I agree that it would be great to promote KSD, to give a big hello, a big welcome, you know, when seeing those buildings. I wish that was something that we could focus on primarily. Nancy's commenting. I don't know if she's spotlighted.
Hold on.
Okay, thank you.
I messed it up. Hold on just a second.
Nope, I think they're good. I just wanted to say that I agree with Scott and Debbie, their comments. Lee Hall, that huge front lawn. I can remember years ago, I can't remember what it was called. I think it was the agricultural class. They used that front lawn for an event that they had where there were booths and corn mazes and lots of different things. It was a very nice area to use that in the summer or early fall. And at the same time, right across the road where I think there were Amish that were setting up booths at that same time during a citywide event. It was an extension of the citywide event where they could see that KSD was here, that the residential school was in existence, and they drew a lot of people from that citywide event by extending on into Lee Hall. And a lot of visitors came and were able to see it for the first time. I wish that was something that they could do annually, just an idea of getting more people aware of what's going on. Jeff would like to say something. Scott Hahn mentioned the roofs and the HVAC, and I do agree that those two should be the top priority when looking at our campus as a whole. I think that just makes sense. KSD does have some issues with mold. It has had them in the past, and you know, we've done a lot of things, spent a lot of money trying to alleviate those issues. And so roofing definitely and HVAC should be considered a top priority. The other things are a big challenge financially anyway. I agree with Scott about Lee Hall. You know, it's 30 years. I'm one of the students who met, alumni who met and brought that up, an auditorium, having that right there on the corner. I guess that's been almost 30 years ago. We're still talking about it today. It hasn't happened yet. And so I think that's why we continue to. It's one of my top priorities, I think, because it really will be useful for students. And I don't think we'd have a hard time showing how useful it would be for conventions, for conferences, kind of like what Center has, that we could rent out. Other universities have as like a combination of classroom or plans like Scott mentioned about if there's renovations happening in another building, you know, moving them over, meeting rooms. I think we could really do a multi-purpose building, not even just think of just an auditorium for that whole building, but it would be money well invested to refuel the life into Lee Hall. And I don't know if you remember back in July when we met, we also mentioned seeing the look of KSD when you come onto campus be improved. It can be embarrassing at times. We all know, even though there's been improvements made. A couple days ago, I had several friends calling me concerned about Walker Hall, same with Lee Hall. And so I was trying to kind of put out some fires and explain what was really going on, and that we are in the process of working on enhancing campus. But, you know, I just hope things will continue to be better and go in the right direction. You know, without Lee Hall, it's kind of like a ghost town. If we didn't have that central building, I don't know if people could even locate where KSD was. You know, it's nice to see Lee Hall. You know, I agree with Toya about having fencing that matches what Jacobs Hall has across the street. And then, you know, it'd be nice if people coming onto campus could continue to feel the inspiration and love that we have, you know, the look, the history, the things that are going on campus, the home feeling that so many of us has when we come back to campus. You know, it's been a long time since I've been in high school, but I still get that feeling when I come on campus. And I want parents to feel that too. I want them to feel that when they come to our campus, that this is a place where they would want their children to come, when they see that our technology is, you know, matching 2021. You know, I know that we're trying and that technology is fast paced, you know, but I have, I have more than 40 years in with experience with technology. So I know that it changes quickly. And I think that it's time to upgrade some of those things that we have to showcase what we really do have and our strengths for parents. And as far as those dorms that are left vacant, you know, like Bruce and Beecham and some of those other ones, I would love to see those improved as well. So anyway, Scott said, one more thing I just thought of, the dorms, it could even be transformed into honor dorms for our junior and seniors, you know, who are in like maybe an independent living situation now, what we currently have. It would be, okay. We do have that now? Okay. Okay. So just another reason of justification, you know, to add to the list of what we've already mentioned with parents and visiting teams. And so just a thought to try to help drive that point home with those that need convincing. So any other comments or suggestions from the board? Bridget or Joshua, I mean, I know that may not be as familiar with campus, but do you have any comments or input?
No, I'm just listening right now. I don't have a lot of comments. I do believe that a multi-purpose, you know, I think there would be a lot of use in the auditorium, and you know, I tend to agree with what has been said, although I haven't been to campus and don't know and not familiar with it as much. I do agree that, you know, an auditorium where you can bring the community together, that's such a key, is just being able to bring the community together is really important, and having that centralized location to be able to do that is huge.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. That we have to remind ourselves to invite the board members, especially the new ones, for a tour of campus when time allows, so that you have an idea and a feel for some of our discussion of our beautiful campus. And so I was saying, I have invited the board members to campus, and so we'll work on that on the date.
I can say that with my experience of coming to campus, that I feel it is a beautiful campus. It is evident that there is history And being someone who appreciates history, it's important to not forget history and learn from that. And especially during this time that we are dealing with as far as challenge. So the campus is lovely. I think the conscious effort to try to maintain its structures and facilities, as well as the safety of our youth that's present, that's vital. And hopefully soon we will be able to all be back together in a healthy and safe environment.
Agreed. Thank you, Bridget. Anybody else? Okay, great. Moving on. Thank you, Ms. Roby. You did a great job in preparing that presentation for us to explain what's been going on and then giving us the time to study it beforehand so that we could give ample feedback. Thank you for that. Goals for the next meeting. I've been in discussion with Toya about our annual report. And we're going to move that to next year just because it's been such a strange and unique year with the coronavirus. We're going to put that off until next year. Let's see. When it comes to the budget update with the legislatures, I'm grateful for them for supporting our school, as has been explained. And in the last meeting, there was a gentleman who came to talk with us. They were going to have a board meeting to address some issues about deaf teachers and certification issues. So also the question about the 200th anniversary planning. I think the board members would like an update on that. It's coming quicker than we know. 2021 already. It's be here before we know it. And so just wanting to make sure that we all are aware of how we can support the planning in that, and if we can perhaps find ways to enhance Jacobs Hall. It's been 45 years since the last major renovation, 1978. And I mean, there's been painting and some floor work, but true structural improvements haven't been made in a long time with plumbing and electricity and the foundation and that kind of thing. So maybe talking about finding a way to get a grant or some type of special financing that doesn't have to tie into KSD's budget, that for the students, you know what I mean? So those are the things that I had listed. I don't know if there's anything else that anyone wanted to add. As far as public comments, I do have one, but it's 3 pages long. So it's about the 6-year plan and some input for that. And I will share that with Mr. Hewlett and Miss Roby. I've shared it with the board already from Miss Harris. But the one of the questions that was given, let me look down here at the bottom of it. about the teams using the soccer fields on campus and if they're being charged rent or any type of anything tied to that. Do you have any information about what's going on with that?
That field is leased to Danville, and we do have some small revenue on that property. The soccer field and the cross-country track, that is behind Middleton.
Okay. The next question that was posed was by Barbie Harris. And let me see. Is there plans for summer school?
Yes.
She had a list of suggestions on how to run summer school if you are in need of ideas, such as a 1-week community camp, like chemistry camp, math camp, NASA camp, things like that. Different types of camp to kind of play into interest, drama, theater, dance groups, that kind of camp, even political camps or politics to teach about politics and the government so that students can feel like they can participate. Maybe the civics of it, what is legislature, what does the president do, their roles, just kind of an educational opportunity. I think that's a good one. I like that one personally. Jennifer Harris also emailed several things. She asked, where are the BIPOC, the Black, Indigenous, people of color students?
We have students of color on campus.
Okay. And okay, I just want to make sure that we address that question. What about regional programs? Is there an update on how outreach is doing in Northern Kentucky all the way to Western Kentucky, like in Owensboro and Paducah and those type of places? Southwest, you know, Eastern Kentucky, I know we have outreach in all those locations. Are they still active and working with our campus and those students out there?
They are. We have metrics that Tony shares with me at least once a month on the number of consults that are taking place within districts as well as with families. We have some students who have come to campus this year because we have been virtual. They've utilized KSD. I guess the thinking is if I'm going to be virtual, I'd rather be virtual at KSD. So we've had some students that have attended us partial day that are still in their home district as well as attending classes at KSD. So outreach has been a very active part in helping to recruit these students.
Okay, thank you. The next question was enrollment. Is that increasing?
Enrollment has gone up. Enrollment has gone up this year, but as I said earlier, we had 12 to graduate last year, and that's a big hit. So you kind of have to recoup what you lose to the graduating class and on top of what you've lost and try to recruit on top of that. So we have almost gotten back those 12. So our numbers have gone up significantly this year, but it's put us back to where we were last year before those graduated.
Thank you. The next question was about the recreation and after-school programs. There was a question of those needing to be addressed and what opportunities were available after school.
We have our kids participated, of course, this year it's been a moot point. But prior to that, our kids were involved in the city basketball program. Those students in the dorms, we had activities for them. We have, we're in process of installing some outdoor activities for our students. We're looking at an outdoor volleyball court, as well as disc golf. We have freshened up our basketball courts. We've got outdoor chess that we have purchased for the kids. They actually dragged it into the auditorium, but we've been looking at that, as well as our playground that our kids have not been able to do. As for other extracurricular activities, we're kind of limited on that. We've been working with a local minister who has sought us out to engage our kids with on some Wednesday night services. So again, this year it's all a moot point because we've not been able to do that.
Okay, thank you. The next comment was a question of the statistics of students who graduated from KSD and the location of their current jobs or college that they're attending. Do we have any data about that sort of thing to share?
That is something that I've asked for to try to get into place. We have what's called one yo-yo 1 year out that we're required to do. You know, what are the students doing 1 year after graduation? I would like us to follow our students further out. We know at a national level that only 42% of individuals who are deaf are actively employed in those numbers. We've got to do better than that. We can't control national statistics, but we can support and control, not control, but we can support our graduates here and follow what and where they are, you know, what they're doing. We have some active placements with our students who are in our CTE program, working with Center. This year, where the students have been home, they've been placed out in jobs in their local community, and our CTE staff is working with them. So that is some data points, Scott, that I want in tracking those kids. Now, we keep up where their addresses are, but what we don't keep up with is where they're working. So we've got to develop a system that is our kids are committed to before they leave, because we'll call kids and it's hard to track some of them down. They won't return a call. So that's something we need to build to be better over time. But frankly, I think that starts before they leave here, that they know we're invested in them and that we want to keep up with them and what they're doing.
Thank you. I know we often wonder about our outreach department being able to visit and have one-on-one meetings with our graduates to ask them maybe a list of questions to kind of help us gain a better picture of where they're going, maybe instead of a phone call, as is with deaf culture, maybe that in-person follow-up about the transition that they've made from graduation, might be a better approach. Just a thought. Okay, and the next comment.
Our CTE classes have historically been only for high school. We have added exploratory classes this year for our middle school students. to rotate through our CTE courses to help expose them earlier to job possibilities, so that we're essentially recruiting that CTE program early, so that they're seeing advanced manufacturing, they're seeing culinary, and they're seeing ag, which we know there's more beyond that, but we want them to see those possibilities and what those offerings could be within those classes.
Jeff would like to make a comment. I'm not sure if this is a possibility or not, but thinking about VR, having that data, you know, it might be worth partnering with them under the KSD umbrella and working with them to get that information. I know that I've worked with VR in the past, and that is something that's not unique to them. So it's worth looking into. Scott saying, also another comment was made about dorm staff being trained on ethics and confidential information and how to handle medication for students when they need it. Is there such training on code of ethics, perhaps, or confidentiality and that sort of thing for the dorm staff?
Part of our onboarding of new staff, they have to go through that. And actually, one of our basic interview questions that is on every one that we interview staff is about confidentiality. Also, we have what's called a med certified training that the dorm director and Kelly, our school nurse, work on training specific staff on who is med certified. Our staff yearly go as part of our staff handbook, confidentiality is addressed. If one of the supervisors identify any concerns with any staff breaching confidentiality, that will be addressed.
Okay, thank you. Next comment. These last two more, just so everyone knows. Is there a plan in place in case of another pandemic that should arise in the future? Are we preparing for something like this to happen again in the future?
Well, I think COVID-19 was an anomaly that nobody could plan for. But if anything could help you to be better prepared, I think it would be what we've done this past year in preparing for our students to return. So, you know, we have what we've learned and we'll apply it should something else unique arise. But I will say this, we can have great plans, but no great plans are successful without a great team. And we call it the BSE, Best Staff Ever. Our team from student life, maintenance, teachers, support staff, outreach, my leadership teams, they have been phenomenal. So we could have the perfect plan and it's all for naught unless we have the perfect team, and we have got a phenomenal team at KSD.
Great. And then the last public comment was requesting an update on what happened to the original task force recommendations.
I don't know about original task force. Was I here for that? I think that
no.
Okay.
No.
So
Jeff knows. I'll let Jeff mention it. We established that task force there's about 16 recommendations. I think I have to go back and look, refresh my memory, but we had made recommendations. And after that, nothing was followed through. And so I think that's probably why that was brought up, because we were just curious on what was going on with it. We had 16 specific recommendations, like signing on campus at all times. You know, there's several more that were included in that, but that just to give you an idea. And so as there's still weaknesses and concerns, I think it's still a good idea to go back and review those 16 recommendations because they're still applicable. And so I believe Scott said he had a copy. I've been through it. I've got a copy of that, those recommendations I can share. We've had them even back when Dr. Corson was here. Jeff said, yeah, my wife, she was the chairperson, so she has all that information. So I'll kind of nudge her and see if I can't get that to share and make sure that you're aware of them. And then maybe that can be addressed at the next meeting. Scott said, okay, I think that is it for public comment. Like I said, there were 3 pages of input given on the 6-year plan. So I'll send that out to everyone instead of going over it and include Mr. Hewlett on that. Let me make sure that there wasn't anything else that needed to be addressed. Before Christmas, I did get staff appreciation, retirement, and senior graduation information. And I wanted to share that with you guys. I got some signatures from everyone, and Toya will share that out. Thank you so much for doing that. The next advisory board date, May is the month. Do we want to go ahead and decide on a day while we're all here? Not Wednesday, Nancy Perry has said. What's your preference then, Mr. Hahn said? Tuesday? Would a Tuesday work again like we have? Seems that that works for those whose video's on. Do you say something? I'm sorry. I'm just asking for a preference for the board members on a day in May. It looks like maybe a Monday or a Tuesday so far. And that would mean the 10th, 11th. Should we plan for the 10th? Mr. Kasinger is saying the 10th. Debbie Martin, Nancy are agreeing with the 10th. That's a Monday. Board members, the remaining, does that work? Joshua, Bridget, I want to make sure that you feel included and have some input on the next date. Dodie and who else? There's 2 more that aren't here. So I don't know if we want to pick 2 dates to choose from. Sure. Scott saying, how about May 10th or 11th? That would be that Monday or Tuesday, the 2nd week in May, and a time. We have the same time, 3 o'clock.
That works for me.
That's Bridget. Okay. Okay, thank you. Miss Roby, is that okay with you? Do those 2 dates, either of them work, one better than the other? 3 o'clock, May 10th or 11th? Toya is saying, in my opinion, the closer to the beginning of May is better. So just because of graduation and end of year events. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Thanks for that reminder. That's a very good point. Okay, then should we look at the 1st week of May, perhaps the 3rd or the 4th instead? Everyone on screen looks like they agree. Do you think that there's going to be a possibility of in-person, or will it be virtual again, Ms. Roby? And she's saying no decision has been made yet. However, we'll have to feedback from last year, parents and students was wonderful. You know, they loved it being virtual. So, and there's more opportunity for people to be able to see and access the virtual meetings, I guess. So
Outside, I'm sorry, outside. Moms and dads,
You're talking about graduation outside.
yeah, graduation outside.
Oh, we are talking
Outside, I'm sorry.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, I see. I see. I see. Okay. Good. Okay. So when is graduation? What is the date?
February 28th is our last day. We have,
February?
yeah. 28th of May is our last day. That more than likely will be our graduation, but nothing's set in stone should something weird happen. So hopefully it's the 28th.
Okay. So then let's plan on having a meeting either May 3rd or 4th at 3 o'clock. And we can decide later. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Nancy is saying, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I have anyone second that?
I second.
Thank you. All in favor? All right, great. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Please stay healthy and we'll see you in May. Ooh, Hopper.
Oh, Bridget.
Going, gone.